All right. So I hope everybody can see that. This is a boring PowerPoint, but it will be just a few slides, and then actually the major part of the today's session is the hands-on demo. So I think it's going to be more interesting. But let's get first things first. So welcome everyone at the Kea Configuration with Stork webinar from ISC. My name is Marcin Siodelski. As Vicky said, I'm a software engineer working on Kea, but currently mostly on Stork. There are some other folks from ISC. I think there was supposed to be Sławek Figo, who is the other full-time developer in Stork, and he's responsible for many fancy features like Stork hooks, for example. There is Darren Anki, who's director of IC support. There's Vicky, obviously, who organized this meeting. There's Piotrek Zadroga, who is a Kea software engineer, but now also ramping up to Stork development. So you've got quite a few people from ISC that will be able to, hopefully answer your questions if you have them. So let's move on with that. So the earlier webinars that we had, and specifically I'm thinking about the one that was in the fall, I think this year, or a couple of months ago anyway, conducted by Karsten Strotman. This webinar mostly focused on the monitoring part of Stork, because as you may know, Stork was initially created as a monitoring system, not the management system, not the configuration management system, but a monitoring system. And so Karsten covered things like how to connect Kea servers and Bind9 servers to Stork, how to display system information for the monitored machines, how the log viewer for Kea works in Stork, events dashboard, the subnet share network and pool utilization graphs, basic list search. One part I think that was a part of this webinar was host reservation management, because host reservation management was one of the first configuration feature that we added. It was a couple of months ago already. Then config reviews and integration with Prometheus and Grafana. So everybody who's interested in this former webinar are encouraged to go to the YouTube page, and I'm giving a link here on this slide where you can find it. When you can, if you haven't watched it, I strongly encourage you to do it. Or if you want to remind yourself certain things about Stork, this is also a good resource for you. By the way, I'm sorry for any for the running nose and any coughing today, because I have little health crisis at home, so you may already hear that, but I'll do my best to not spoil the webinar with it. So today we're gonna move to the new topics, the topics that cover the most recent additions to Stork. And that covers to some degree subnet statistics, and creating address and prefix pools for a subnet, cascaded parameters, and by cascaded parameters I mean the hierarchical structure of parameters that we have in Kea, which is that you can specify certain parameters at global level, share network level, subnet level, and pool level, and in Stork we have to deal with this complicated hierarchy, and I want to show you how to do that, and maybe gather also some feedback from you what could be improved and what is possibly wrong with that. Same for the DHCP options. The DHCP options configuration Kea also has a very hierarchical nature, so I'll show you how that works in Stork management system. And finally, if we have time, I'll show you the very new feature, invalidating Kea configuration. It's a tiny feature, but might be useful in some cases. in invalidating, by invalidating, I mean you mark the configuration invalid, and then that way you force Stork to refetch this configuration from the Kea service. We're going to use some helpful tools that you may be familiar with from the previous webinars, and that is the list of hooks. And for this webinar, we will require premium hooks from Kea. So if you want to use any of those features by yourself, you want to play with them, you're also required to have premium Kea hooks loaded. We will make some use of configuration review checkers, log viewer, and traffic simulator. So the configuration management is currently in progress. We're working full time on adding new configuration capabilities to Stork, but there are some notable features missing. So, for example, we currently don't have pool ID management. The pool ID is a new value that you can specify for pools in Kea. Stork doesn't understand pool ID at the moment, but we'll be working on this shortly to add it. We don't have the capability for creating subnets. We only can update subnets. It doesn't look like a big difference, but that's how it is today. You can only update existing subnets. You cannot create a brand new subnet. That will be probably in the next release. Then migrating subnets between shared networks. So suppose you have a subnet within the shared network and you want to put it outside of any shared network. We don't do that in Stork right now. We don't do managing shared networks. We don't manage global parameters. And finally, we have the event system that indicates certain events that happen in Stork, but we don't log many events related to configuration updates at the moment. So that all these things we're working on them, they'll be in subsequent releases, but they are not yet there yet. However, I think the configuration management in Stork is at the stage when we can actually show it to you, and this is why we're doing it today, because we really value feedback from the users, so the users can tell us, what we're doing wrong, what could be improved, and obviously things like, for example, shared networks management will be to a certain degree similar to subnets management. So all the input regarding subnet management will also apply to shared network management. So I think it's already a good time to gather the feedback from the users. So you can post your questions here, or you can, excuse me, post your questions on the mailing list. You can create GitLab issues. I think GitLab issues are the best because we have weekly calls when we triage the new issues. So, and mailing lists can sometimes escape our attention, but all these methods for sharing feedback are good, and I encourage you to use them. So I'm sorry. So this is really the end of the PowerPoint presentation, and so let me now I'll try to share the okay. Can you see the Stork dashboard? Can anyone confirm?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm for this presentation, I'm using a Stork version 1.14 with some small fixes I applied just before the webinar, just because I spotted them and they were useful for me. But otherwise, it's a every feature we're talking about is in Stork 1.14. And well, as I said, we require for this webinar premium features. So even though I have several machines here unauthorized, I didn't authorize them just for clarity. I'm just using 2 machines from our Docker container demo, Kea Premium 1, Kea Premium 2. So if you navigate to the application view, you're gonna see that each daemon is using a bunch of hook libraries, and most of them are actually premium. So for the purpose of this webinar, we're gonna need subnets, statistic commands, hook library. We also need host commands, hook library, and most of all, we need the subnet commands, hook library for managing the subnets. I would also pay your attention to this section. I think it was broken for a while, and we corrected the link. So when you click the specific link next to the hook library name, you'll be taken to the hook documentation. I think it's kind of cool and kind of useful when you want to learn about the hook library, or you want to check how to configure it. I would also like to pay your attention to the config review reports, which are at the bottom of the page. You're probably familiar with the config review reports already, but we'll be playing a little bit with the subnets, and at some point you're going to see that the configuration report we are seeing will be gone. So this is why I'm paying your attention to it. So configuration review reports contain a bunch of checkers. We currently have a total of 12 checkers, and one of the checkers, which is called out of pool reservation, found an issue with the subnet that belongs to the servers we authorize and the servers we are using for this presentation. And out of pool reservation report complains about the reservation mode that is in use, and it detected that there are some host reservations that are out of any pool, and we are not using out of pool host reservation mode. If we use that, we could slightly improve performance. So if you're annoyed with some configuration checker reports, I just remind you that you can always click here and you can mute a selected checker. Then you most often have to rerun the review, and this configuration checker will no longer bug you. But we actually need this one, so I put it back and I let it complain. All right, so the other thing I want to show you is that for this particular server, we have some host reservations specified, and so the reservations that the checker was complaining about. So let's go to host reservations very briefly. There's a list of host reservations, and you can see there are 2 global, but 2 belonging to an IPv4 subnet we'll be using for this presentation. So we have host reservations between address 230 and 239. So we have the total of 10 IPv4 reservations that are out of any pool, and here they are, so you can see them. All right, and from here we can navigate to the main part of our focus today, which is subnets management. So I clicked on a subnet, and I was taken to a subnet details tab that was open next to the subnets list. So you can see on my 2 machines that I authorized, I have the total of 3 subnets, and 1 IPv4, 2 IPv6 subnets. So let's now focus on IPv4 subnet. So this is the first one. It has a total of 10 addresses. you may have already realized that these 10 addresses are the host reservations that I just showed you. None of the addresses have been assigned because there is no DHCP traffic going on, so the pool utilization is 0%, and there are no pools. We have some pools for IPv6, but no pools for IPv4. It's also worth mentioning that the subnet I'm talking about is present on both the DHCP servers. This is a typical scenario when you have some redundancy, when you have HA, when you have multiple servers connected to the same database backend to releases. So Stork discovered the same subnet on those two servers, and both servers apparently use the same subnet ID for this subnet. So you may be familiar with the concept of subnet ID and Kea. It is highly confusing to many people because Stork is tracking subnets under its own identifiers. But this one is actually the subnet ID taken from the Kea configuration. So theoretically, if you look into the details of the subnet, then you may see that we have and you listed them as distinct subnet identifiers. So on premium 1, it's 123. On premium 2, it happens to be 123 also, but it could be different in theory, depending on how you configured your DHCP servers. For the purpose of that presentation, it's also worth noting that our Docker demo system has a traffic simulator. The traffic simulator is running at port 5000, and it allows you to manage the services, but also it allows you to fire some DHCP traffic against certain subnets. So in my case, IPv4 subnet that starts with 192. So let's start it. Let's wait a few seconds. I think it runs like every second, 1 packet a second. So let's stop it. And if you go back here, unfortunately, we don't have any way right now to refresh this page. It doesn't refresh by itself, but you can always refresh the page using the browser refresh button. But you see, nothing happens. I mean, there's no, the statistics hasn't changed at all. Okay, we only have 10 addresses, but still no assigned. So, usually when you want to diagnose or start diagnosing problems like this, you should basically, you can, you don't have to, but one of the ways to diagnose the problem is by clicking on the machine and going to the loggers section. And so the logger by default shows you the tail of the Kea log. If it doesn't show you any useful information, you can use the plus button, and the plus button extends the log view, and now you see that actually the allocation failed. See those warning messages, the allocation failed because the subnet has no pools. It has some host reservations, but in our case, the host reservations, MAC addresses, do not match what the traffic generator is generating, and that's the reason why your statistics is not changing when you run the simulator. Okay, so let's go back and let's go back to subnets and let's fix it. Basically, that's the main purpose of this webinar, to fix this problem. So when I go to the detailed view of a subnet, I see pretty much the same information, subnet ID, what servers are associated with this subnet. I see there are no pools configured, so this is my problem I want to fix. There is a bunch of DHCP parameters that you're familiar with from the Kea config, but let's not focus on them now, just showing you what's here, and DHCP options. And also there are no options. So in order to add some new pools, we have to scroll down, click on the edit button, and here you see a form that allows you to change your subnet configuration. So the assignments, this is an interesting part of the subnet management or a pool management also. The assignments is a, you know, it really holds a drop down where you can say which servers should have this subnet configured. Right now, both of them have, but theoretically, I could just deselect one of them. And if I submit this form, that should result in deleting the subnet from the configuration of the server I just deselected, and just the subnet should remain on the premium one server. So with a single click like this, you can remove the whole subnet from the server, or you can add it. Okay. But this is a very powerful feature. If you make a mistake, it's maybe we should have some pop-up window saying, hey, do you really want to do that? But anyway, if you made a mistake, you don't know what exactly you changed in the form, revert changes button that's at the bottom should bring back the defaults, the original form data. So let's add some pool. To add an address pool, I click add pool. Obviously, I have to expand it. Sorry, my cat is making noise. I just 2 seconds. That was unexpected. So okay. To add a new pool, there are some mandatory parameters. Obviously, the pool range. So I have to specify an IP. Oh, sorry. An IP address. Okay. This is a valid IP address, but you can see an error message here saying, well, it should belong to the subnet prefix, obviously. So let's fix that. Let's say 230 up to 250. So now it's accepted, but you see this little exclamation mark. The exclamation mark will remain even if I fold the pool form. That indicates that something is still wrong. What is wrong is I also have to assign this pool to 2 servers or 1 server. So the list contains all the servers that have this particular subnet configuration. So server 1 and server 2. So let's just assign this pool to a single server. I could assign it to both servers. I'm doing it purposely because I want to show you a more sophisticated scenario where you have a single subnet and you have several servers using it, but they use different pools. For example, it might be useful in cases when you don't want them to stomp on each other. You don't want them to assign leases from the same pool to different clients. So you basically we're trying to avoid the lease assignment conflicts. So this is my first pool. I leave the pool DHCP parameters and options for now, and let's add another pool. So the other pool can be this. Oops. So I made a mistake again, and the mistake is that the pools actually overlap. So this pool ends at 250, and this one starts at 250. So the address 250 is common between them. So I can fix this. There is still a little exclamation mark that you already know how to fix. So I assign this pool to one of my servers. And now I can go ahead and submit. All right, so my updated subnet now has new pools. Okay, and so these different boxes show pools for respective servers. Okay, so now that we have the pools, let's try the experiment with the simulator again and see what happens. Okay. So again, I go back. There should be some lease assignments already, but you know, it takes time because Stork is using the concept of the poolers, and the poolers run at certain interval. They send queries every so often to the Kea servers to gather statistics. If you want to manipulate the pooler mechanism, if you want to change the intervals, you want certain updates to happen, you know, more frequently or less frequently, you navigate to configuration settings, and here you have a set of poolers, and for example, the statistics pooler runs every 60 seconds. So that explains why it takes so long for the actual statistics to occur. But you see that it already pulled the statistics. So this is a little graphical representation of the pool utilization. So we have the total of 25 addresses. We have 10 of them assigned, which is 40% of the entire address space. If you now go to the details, you're gonna see something new. Something new is only presented when you have some dynamic address pools. If you can see that the statistics charts are not shown when you only have host reservations. It's only so. But from those charts now you can see first of all the total address utilization, so combined from both servers, the total of 25 addresses, 10 assigned, and here you see the split between the servers. So apparently the server one allocated 21 I'm sorry, allocated all the 10 addresses. It has a total of 21 addresses from the pool we specified, and the other one didn't allocate it, you know, allocated no addresses, but has 4 in its pool. Okay, so this is a new statistics view. It has been added pretty recently. I think it's also might be useful. Okay, so what else? Well, certainly we can navigate again to this page and make 2 observations. First observation is that the configuration review report is now gone. Okay, it's obviously gone because, you know, we had 10 host reservations and no pools, so all the host reservations were out of pool because there were no pools. Now we have the pool which contains those host reservations, so that means that the host reservations are now in the pool. So the out of pool config checker no longer applies. Okay, and so the report is gone. The other observation is if you go to the logger again, the log viewer, you can probably observe, if you scroll far enough, you can observe that the Kea server allocated some addresses for 3 minutes. Okay, 180 seconds. So that all confirms that our pool management works, which is great. And now let's go back to our subnet view. You can see that our statistic is now showing 0%, and that's because the leases that we allocated, they only had the 3 minutes of lifetime, so they are now expired. Okay. I think we are now ready to move to the next part of this view, which is DHCP parameters. you're familiar with this, with these parameters from the Kea configuration file. What you see here is a list of parameters in the first column, and then the other two columns show you the effective value of these parameters for different servers. So what it says is the allocator parameter for this subnet in the Kea Premium 1 server is set to iterative, and same for the other server. And actually, if you go over all the parameters, you'll see that they are all the same. And in many cases, it makes sense because you just just use the same subnet in several servers. So the same subnet for several servers. So each server should most of the time contain the same configuration. But there are some exceptions which I'm gonna show in a minute. But I wanted to show you something more that is hidden in this view. If you click here, expand it, you're gonna see how this parameter was propagated between the levels of configuration in Kea. So, for instance, this says that the authoritative parameter was specified at the global level in the Kea Premium 1 configuration, not at the subnet level. So the effective value is false, obviously, but we could find examples of something different, like I think it was let's say min valid lifetime. So here it's an opposite story. So min valid lifetime is effectively 180, but it was this time specified at the subnet level. Okay, so this is what it shows. Now you can, if you want to change any of these values, you can click edit, and here you see also the same list of parameters with their respective input boxes, but you see there is no split. Okay, there is no you don't specify different values for different parameters by default. Oops, but you can well, let's make an experiment. So let's put TMP boot whatever here and click submit. So you see, I entered the TMP boot value for boot file name, and this value was propagated to both servers for the subnet. So this is a way to specify a parameter value once and make it propagate it to all the servers, in which the subnet is configured. So I think it's very useful, especially when you have many servers running the same subnet. But now you may sometimes want to make some exceptions. And for example, oh yeah, I think authoritative will be a good example of it. Okay. In many cases, you have a pair of the servers. One is authoritative and the other one is not authoritative. In our world, in Kea world, authoritative usually means that the authoritative behaves slightly differently when the client is in the init reboot state. So it makes sense to make one of them authoritative, the other one non-authoritative. You can use this unlock button to show controls for the respective servers. So that way you can say this one is authoritative, the other one isn't. Okay. You could also split this value that we entered already, and let's say this one is slightly different. Okay, and you can do that for any of the values that are here. And if you submit it, you're gonna see that this time the boot file name is different on server 1 and different on server 2. Okay, this one is authoritative, this one isn't. So that way, you can make exceptions. You could do it even for all the parameters that you have here, but I don't think it's a frequent case. So one more thing I want to show you is, most of those fields are pretty trivial, like strings or numbers or booleans in this case, but we also have some special fields like relay agent address, or rather relay agent addresses. It's actually an array of addresses. And here we have one relay agent address, but if you want to put more, you can certainly do that. You can put an additional one here, press return or enter, and then you have two. Okay. Similarly, you can specify multiple values for required client classes parameters. Very hard to pronounce it. So okay, so let's submit it, and just confirm that it was extended. The way we show these arrays is a little bit raw, but we may fix that in the future. I think that was just a low-hanging fruit to use this notation, but I think it should look prettier anyway. Okay. So I guess it's also worth now going to IPv6 subnets, because we have two IPv6 subnets here. And let's open an IPv6 subnet. The IPv6 subnet already has an address pool, so it also has charts that show nothing. But statistics that show zeros is also statistics. And here I want to show you DHCP options. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. Maybe let's start with something different. Let's forget the DHCP options for just 3 minutes. And first, I want to show you something different. Prefix delegation pools. Okay, so we have an address pool here, but we have no prefix delegation pool. The prefix delegation pools, obviously, this is IPv6 only features. So if you have IPv4 subnets, you wouldn't see this, but for v6 we do. So let's add some new prefix delegation pool. So first of all, you specify the pool prefix. Let's make it /64. If I do this, it's gonna say no, because delegated prefix length must not be lower than the prefix length. This is obvious. I could make it 64, which would constitute the prefix delegation pool that only has a single prefix. It's not very popular too. So let's make it 80. Optionally, you can specify an excluded prefix, and let's say 38. It has two issues. The first issue is that the length must actually be greater than the delegated prefix length, and the other issue is that it doesn't belong to our prefix. Okay, so I have to fix that. I have to assign the servers, and let's assign both servers to this prefix delegation pool. And since I already told you about the specifying DHCP parameters, you can also specify DHCP parameters at pool level here. And Kea supports client class, required client classes parameters at pool level, but also it supports pool ID. As I said in my earlier presentation, pool ID is currently not supported, but we are working on it. Okay, so I can add some stuff here. I can even specify pool level options. So let's say option DNS servers, and let's add something here. Okay, so and so this is a prefix delegation pool. let's submit it. Okay. So now we have two pools. Don't focus too much on the alignment issue, that it's very obvious here. It's a bug that has to be fixed. But now you see that there are two pools for this subnet. One is the address pool, and the other one is the prefix delegation pool. And the prefix delegation is /64. The delegated length is 80, and the excluded prefix is 96. Okay, so now an important comment here I want to make is that you remember we entered some pool specific parameters and the option. You cannot see it here. It's the limitation of the current Stork version that you only see the basics of the pool, but no pool specific parameters. And obviously we have to fix that. There are some tickets for it, but you know, from the paradox is that you can only see those values when you edit the subnet, not when you're viewing it. Okay, but if you really want to see whether your pool configuration contains these values, there is always a workaround that you can select the server where the subnet belongs. It's obviously a DHCP v6 server, and you can click role configuration. The role configuration is a reflection of the Kea configuration as JSON, okay, in JSON format. So if you scroll to subnet 6, open the subnet, hopefully this is the one, and open PD pools, you're gonna see there's a pool with the client class food, delegated length 80, blah blah blah. So everything we specified there is here, but it's not visible from the subnet view. But again, this is a temporary limitation of the software. Okay, so I promised to say something about the options. Oh, now there you go. Now you have a fancy view of all the statistics. But I promise to say something about the options. You see that these servers have a single global option in this subnet. Global means it's specified at the global level, global configuration level. What you can do is you can override it with some different option or set of options. So you can add option and well, let's say you specify the same option but different value. And you submit that. So now you see that you no longer see the global option here. You only see the subnet option because this is the one that takes precedence over the global configuration. Okay, it's not that global option is gone, but it's not seen here. I'm thinking about some ways how to logically present everything at different levels like we have here, but it's not very trivial because options have hierarchical structure. But I thought I should show you this because you might be surprised saying, hey, where's my global option? It was here, now I have something else. It's not here because you're overriding it with the subnet level option that takes precedence. But you can play with it a little bit more. Similarly, like you made exceptions for DHCP parameters, you can also make exceptions or specify per server options with this setting. Okay, so now both servers have a copy of the option you specified. You specified, but you can specify different values for these options. Okay, and then click submit. So now you see you have two respective views of DHCP options on server 1 and server 2 because they contain different options. You could also for instance remove one of the options and add some different option. Well, it's you could add, well, let's make it option preferences, doesn't matter what it is. If you click that, now you see that the premium one server, it no longer has a DNS servers option at the subnet level, so the global option pops up again, which and it makes it effective for the subnet. Also have a subnet option preference for this server, and for the premium 2 server, you're still overriding DNS servers option at the global level with the subnet level. The DHCP option. It may look complicated if you're not very familiar with, how Kea configuration hierarchy works. But it's pretty flexible system. Most of the time, you will be just using I think so. I'm not the systems administrator, but I think most of the time you're using the same set of options for all servers, so you don't have to deal with that complexity. So this is almost the end. I also said there's a completely new feature, which is this, the little orange. It's not very little, actually. It's a big one. Orange button that you find if you navigate to Kea apps. You see this. A little background. Stork essentially avoids as much as possible fetching configurations from the Kea servers as much as possible. Okay, it tries to detect whether the configuration on the Kea server has changed or not. It's using a hashing mechanism to detect those configuration changes. But sometimes, due to a software bug in Stork or some data integrity errors, you may have to force Stork to pull the configurations from Kea servers regardless. And we recently had a bug with the log viewer that we corrected, but then we thought that people may actually have a problem that they would have a stale configurations in the Stork server and they would not be able to take benefit from the fix. So in all these cases, it may be useful to use this button, which is forcing Stork to refetch configurations from the monitored Kea servers. So it gives you this little warning, so you can think if you really want to do that, but it's not. Typically, it should be harmless because simply, well, the only side effect is that you're gonna get additional overhead of pooling and processing the fetch configuration. But if you don't have 10,000 servers, it should be a blast, I think. So let's continue. And again, this is not happening instantly because it's based on the poolers mechanism that I mentioned before. But if you want to see if that really happened, you can observe the events page. And the events page, well, I think here what it tells you, it mostly, well, in those cases, it indicates that the configuration has changed because we modified the subnet. But if you refresh the page, you may get some new events we haven't seen before, that the configuration for control agent has changed, v4 server, v6 server has changed. That's an indication actually that the Stork pulled configurations from Kea after you requested the resynchronization. So that proves that what I clicked triggered the actual action. All right, I think this is all I had. This is all I had from the presentation, and I guess now we can move on to the questions.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Marcin. So there was one question, and I think probably there are several people interested in this. Could you just talk a little bit about the Stork demo kit, and in particular, the traffic simulator that you used? How
Sure.
does one get that?
Okay. We have we have some detailed instructions, I think, in the Stork user's manual, how to run the demo, how to start the demo. We also have a GitLab, a wiki page where we describe what is in the demo and how to operate it. If you start your demo, the full demo, you know, the Stork UI is available at localhost 8080. Then if you in the browser type localhost port 5000, that shows the simulator. Okay. Now, there are three tabs here. I'm not using DNS traffic very often, so I'm not going to talk about that. But the first tab is useful. It's called Services Manager, and you know, it collects all the daemons running in all the containers that the demo is using on this list, and it's regardless if the you know, if you authorize this machine in Stork UI or not. So you can see here agent by 9, agent Kea HA2, all the daemons that are started by the Docker in the demo. So this is the machine name. So there's agent Kea Premium 2, the machine name, and this machine is running a Kea agent. So control agent, the DHCP v4 server, the DHCP v6 server. It's running the Prometheus node exporter. It's running the Stork agent. So each machine runs several daemons, and you can use those buttons to stop and start those daemons to simulate, for example, some crash scenarios, or, you know. So what if I click stop here, it should theoretically, you know, it kills my Kea DHCP v4 server, and I should eventually observe that in the status of the Kea apps. And I, you know, so I can see that everything is operational except the DHCP v4 daemon because I stopped it. So again, this is mostly useful for detecting for you know, simulating crash scenarios, or sometimes your daemon is misbehaving and you restart it to see if it helps or not. So if I start it again, it should eventually pop up as operational, but it may take a little bit of time because, again, it's based on Pooler's system.
So what other options do you have for traffic simulation?
Now, if I go to DHCP traffic, that will only show me the that will only show me the list of subnets that come from the servers that I authorized. Okay, so if you go to services machines, you can see that I have a bunch of unauthorized servers, and so if let's authorize this one. Authorization means that I'm starting to monitor this system in Stork. Okay, I'm sorry. So first of all, I should instantly see more subnets. Okay, because all these subnets come from the configuration of the authorized machine Kea agent Kea. Okay, but also if you go to the traffic simulator, if you refresh this page, you will see all these subnets here. Okay, and for those that come with the start button, you can start the traffic, and you've seen I did that for this subnet. It basically runs perf DHCP. Perf DHCP is a software that is released with Kea. It's a part of the Kea package, and we are using it to simulate traffic in our performance tests. Okay, and this field here simulates how many different clients I am simulating. So I'm simulating 1,000 different clients. I could simulate just one, and if I do that, the same the same MAC address will be sending requests to the Kea service. So technically, I'll just assign a single lease. I'll be constantly renewing this lease, and I should see that in the statistics. The rate is the number of requests per second. So if I start every second, a new Adora, a new four-way exchange is sent from Perf DHCP to Kea, and Kea allocates this address. So I can increase the rate, but I think increasing the rate is mostly useful for DHCP v6 case when you have tons of addresses. Otherwise, if the rate is too high and you start it, it will instantly suck out all the addresses from the pools. Well, depending on the pool size, obviously, but there's a risk of that. Right, and one additional information here is that some of the subnets belong to the shared network. Doesn't matter that much here because you can find the same information. Well, you can find the same information on this page. There's a shared network named Frog, and all these subnets belong to it. So I don't know, does that answer the
Yes,
question?
I think that's great. Thank you very much. And I put a link in the chat to the documentation for the demo system.
Okay,
Another thing nobody asked, but and I think you have effectively shown us this, but I just wanted to emphasize it. One of the issues with running a failover pair or an HA pair in Kea is that you need to have the same subnets on both machines. Could you just go back and just talk about that use case a bit? That's something
in the
that's a
context of Stork or
super useful feature of being able to assign the subnets to multiple machines. That it's one of the, I think, a major use case where people are going to want to do that.
oh, you want, okay, so you want to talk about subnet management in the context of HA.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. I accidentally muted. Yes, that's what I was
Okay.
asking.
Okay. Well, HA. In Kea HA, you have typically you have two servers. So you can do load balancing, or you can do host standby. Well, there are really load balancing and host standby are different cases, because in load balancing you split the traffic between the servers approximately 50-50. In host standby, you have a primary server and the standby server, and the primary server is handling all the traffic, and the other server is waiting for any unexpected crash of the primary server, and it takes over the traffic if the other one crashes. So the configuration for those two differs, okay, but they have a lot in common, really. For load balancing, what you have to do is essentially we have to split the pools up front, okay, because you have two servers allocating addresses at the same time. If the pools overlap between those two configurations, then there's a risk that two servers would allocate or attempt to allocate the same address to two different clients. Okay, so you have to split the pools. And so if you go to this page, this is gonna be useful in a load balancing case. Okay, so you have pool one. You cannot see both at the same time, but you have pool one that is assigned to only one server, and you have pool two that is assigned to the other server. So this is more like a, as I said, load balancing case when you know, when you don't want the services stumped on each other. If there is a different case when you have a host standby, they can freely share the pools or the address space, the entire address space, because there's only one server operating at a time. So there's no risk that any of the servers would allocate a conflicting address, okay, because there's one server that does it. So you can easily what you could do is you can delete this pool. I didn't mention that you can delete pools, but I think it's obvious. And you can even extend this pool with these several addresses and make it a single pool. And with this single click, essentially you migrated from the load balancing oriented case to the hot standby case. Obviously, we don't have features like management of hook library configurations yet, and so on. So this is more theoretical, but we're heading into the direction where you can, with a single click, populate the same data to multiple servers, or make exceptions and differentiate some parts of the configuration between the servers, and that's going to be very useful in the HA case. I'm not I mean, this is a very wide topic. This is a very complicated topic. I don't think we have enough time for it because we already passed the hour, but I'm hoping it's a little bit more clear after my
Right. You've
answer.
you basically just covered what I just wanted to emphasize. I think one of the really great things about this new feature is that it can cover both of the HA cases, load balancing or failover. And as you've demonstrated, it's just a single click to add an existing subnet from one Kea server to another one. And if you need to split the pools, it's very easy to see which pool you have on which server, whether or not they overlap. I think it's a great convenience for that purpose. Anyway, there are no more questions that I see in the chat or the Q&A, so I think that we're done. And thank you very much for this excellent demo.